Okay. Um, Welcome everyone to the Tough Customers first ever podcast. This is going to be called Tough Love. This is episode 1, and this is kind of going to be a pilot episode doing a rundown of the EDH World Cup tournament that we announced. I'm your host, Jordan Friedman. This is my brother, Brandon. To my right, your left. We're going to go over some of the groups, like what the World Cup tournament's about. Yeah. So wait, I'm going to start over.
I mean, we can what we can do is it's first of all, I don't know if we want to do last names.
Why? Everybody does.
Oh.
Josh Lee Kwai, Patrick Marleau.
Okay. Fine. All right. Second thing, you can stumble. This doesn't have to be perfect at the podcast.
No, I know, but it's I kind of got my ideas in the wrong order.
I thought you were doing
it's fine. Not like I stumbled talking wise. I just said ideas backwards to what I wanted to initially say.
All right. Are we going over the rules after we introduce the decks? Is that what I'm seeing here?
No. Yeah, we should probably do the rules first.
Okay. So
yeah, so I'll just give because I have it up there.
Yeah. I'm just
I just said the first thing I'm gonna say is it's formatted like a World Cup. It groups A through D, and we're gonna play 5 games apiece. And the top deck from every group will move on. So if you're familiar with the World Cup, then okay, whatever.
You don't want to. We've already gone over this, but you just want to have one final.
Yeah, we're just gonna have one final for the first one.
Okay. All right. I mean, hold on. I wanted to try this too. Hold on. Because you got yours on pretty easily, it looked like. So I wanted to see if I could get mine on.
Onto my monitor?
Yes.
I mean, it holds pretty well.
Yeah, so I just don't know how to take it off of this thing now. The camera. There we go. Let's see if we can get this up here.
How's it? Nice. I mean, I have a shit in my background too.
I mean, as long as I can get up, put that out of the way. This and this. No, okay. So it's got to be more over here. It's just I want to be looking towards. Let me try to do it.
I don't think it makes a difference. If you look at other podcasts, it's always from an angle.
Yeah.
Okay. Take it away.
Yeah, whenever you're ready. So hold on.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Welcome everybody to the Tough Love podcast. This is going to be our first ever episode. Tough Customers here. My name is Jordan Friedman.
And I'm Brandon Friedman.
By my brother Brandon. It's all good. It's all good. We'll just bleep it out. So we are going to talk in this episode about our World Cup tournament that we announced in our intro video. We're going to give the rundown of the tournament and all the rules and all the competitors, the decks that we're going to play, as well as a kind of a basic rundown of every single deck and the archetype of those decks. The World Cup tournament is going to be really similar to the FIFA Soccer World Cup tournament. If anyone is familiar with that, it's really popular. So I'm sure there are some listeners out there that are familiar with it. But for those of you who are not, we'll go kind of down the line here and explain how it's going to play out, how it's similar, and how it's all going to work out in the end. So, yeah, Brandon, if you want to give the rundown of some of the rules, starting with the groups.
Yeah. So what we have is we each have a set of EDH decks, 8 EDH decks a piece of the four of us. We're joined by our two friends, and we divided them into groups of 8. We have 4 groups total, so it's group A, B, C, and D. And then we put the 32 decks into a randomizer. It randomized all the deck lists. Which gave us our group names, our group setups for group pairings for the way we have all of our decks. So those are going to be the groups, and those groups are going to have 5 games apiece. So per deck. So per deck we'll each have 5 games. At the end of the 5-game setup, there is going to be a top deck. After that top deck is considered the winner of that group, we are going to pair them off the winners of the rest of the groups, and then we'll have one culmination as a championship sort of game at the end with all 4 of the top decks leading group A, B, C, and D. And then that'll be our season 1 champion from then on out. The 4 of us each contributed, like I said, 8 decks. So each of the groups will be featuring 2 of our own personal decks each time we play. So for example, we'll have the 2 decks that we put into the group, but they'll never play each other. So
right. So like the groups, there's group A, B, C, and D, and this works the same as the soccer tournament, and they're going to play round robin. We each have 2 decks in each group. It sounds confusing just by words, but we'll put a graphic up here so you kind of see what we're talking about here. So every deck is going to essentially play 5 games round robin style in the group, but we set it up in such a way that our own personal decks that we will be piloting in these groups will never actually have to play against each other. So that way we don't have to, like share decks or anything. And then at the end of the round robin session, there should be a standalone winner at the top. Maybe we'll have to use some tiebreakers, but we'll figure that out. And then the final 4 groups, 1 from each group, will play in the finals, like you said.
Yeah. So if you can see on the graphic displayed on the screen right now, we have our 32 decks, each squared off into our 4 groups. We're going to run down the deck list. The decks, and we're going to go through, basic archetypes, the style that each deck plays, the pilots that we're going to have. So each of our own personal decks and who plays them. And then we're going to go through one by one right now of each one that we're going to be playing. So you can have like an idea of when you're watching what to expect from, and what the strategies are for the certain deck that's being played. And kind of, we can get that idea of where we're going to be going forward with this. So without further ado, we have group A right now, which are going to be on the screen. And then, so Jordan is going to be piloting his Nicol Bolas the Ravager deck. So if you want to tell him about that a little bit, you can go ahead.
Yeah, well, just real quick though, we'll just go over down the deck list right now. Kind of run down every single deck list, and then I'll go in detail about the deck.
Okay. So we're just going to show you right now the decks that we have.
Yeah, Group
total,
A.
All 32, yeah. So all 32. We're going to go down the deck list. So in Group A, we have Nicol Bolas the Ravager. We have Sliver Hivelord, which will be piloted by me. We have Omnath Locus of Rage, which will be piloted by Rich. Ragnar the Redeemer and Krav the Unredeemed by James. Vevictus Asmati the Dire from Jordan. Sidisi Brood Tyrant from me. Erechmathes the Slumbering Isle from Richard. And then Felden the Third Path from James.
Okay, yeah. So the Nicol Bolas deck that he touched on, this is going to be the deck that I'm playing. This is my own personal deck. This is the Nicol Bolas Supervillains deck. I actually got the idea from Tomer from MTG Goldfish. He came up with a really cool and fun, flavorful idea for Nicol Bolas the Ravager. And I just took it and ran with it. It's a very heavy Planeswalker artifact themed deck that tries to abuse a lot of Planeswalker and artifact synergies in the Grixis colors. And you look to win the game by ultimating hopefully multiple Planeswalkers at the same time and using Armageddon type effects, like the most evil things you can do in EDH, and blow out your opponent's lands, have a bunch of Planeswalkers ready to ultimate, and kind of take the game away from there and lock your opponents out of doing anything.
Yeah, so we played against it a couple times. We haven't really played against it so much. This is a fairly new deck to our
Yeah.
to our group setting, but a lot of these decks we have been playing with. I should say we have been playing with a lot, so it hasn't been like these aren't brand new, and we won't be like rookies piloting these decks. These are going to be like we've piloted all of them to at least some success. Variations matter, but whatever. The second deck is the Sliver Hive Lord, which is going to be piloted by me. This is one of my personal favorites. My tribal. I just have so I have Sliver Hive Lord in the first sliver, and I've thought about going back and forth with them. But I thought the tutor ability from the Sliver Hive Lord gives the deck a little bit more flexibility, gives it a little bit fresher feel when I play with it, so I don't always have to do the same things over and over again.
Right. I was gonna say that it's not like I feel like the first sliver is just the same deck over and over and over.
It's more linear. And then like for some of the strategies that I have in it, I focus some cards at least 5 to 6 cards, focus on taking the opponent's creatures by changing their creatures into slivers and then going from there. But it's mostly to take advantage of the Anthem effects, the effects to give them all the same kind of like lifelink, haste, and then smother and card advantage by tutoring up each turn. Going through that, it's a mainly creature heavy deck. I think I have like 2 or 3 sorceries to go with that, and then it could win the game through a Primal Surge at the end of it to put all slivers into play. Yeah. But to make sure that I don't have like no deck left, I have at least some sorceries and instants that I play. So it's more based on a win more like a finish card rather than the strategy of the deck. So it's just heavily creature based. So that's one of my personal favorites. And then you can do Omnath for Rich.
Yeah. So deck number 3 in Group A is Omnath, Locus of the Rage. I'm sure a lot of people know all about Omnath. It's a very, very popular commander. It's been around for a while. It's Gruul colored, landfall based deck, big Timmy stompy creature deck, playing a lot of I would say what type of ability, like Warstorm Surge type of abilities.
Yeah, like ETB death triggers with damage.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of damage triggers, and then it's just other than that, it's just big Gruul stompy. It's quite a powerful deck even on a budget. It's just really easy to do a lot of like really powerful things very quickly with that deck.
Yeah. The reason I really like the Omnath deck is the way he built it is so it ramps really well in the early game, but like Omnath usually does, it has a very good finishing and late game because lands count as creatures at that point.
Right. Yeah. So you never really out of like dead cards, like normal decks, your typical deck, you don't want to be top decking lands at the end of the game. But with Omnath, it's like every card is useful. Even
it's gas or gas when you're drawing at the end of the game. It's all gas at the end of the game for Omnath. All right, so that's a strategy for Omnath. A little bit different. We're gonna switch it up and like 180 this, and it's gonna be Regna the Redeemer and Krav the Unredeemed. This deck is about drawing the game out, and I'll say it has some taxing effects, because it does play the blind obedience authority of the councils to get the life gain, and it does focus around a aristocrat and life gain theme.
Yeah, this deck is like sheer Orzhov. I mean, this is like an Orzhov player's like dream. Like,
it is about sacking your creatures, gaining life, making angels, doing divine visitation shenanigans, or Ophiomancer, all that good stuff. He's built it. I think it's one of the stronger decks, and I don't see a lot of people, like when I watch content, I don't see a lot of people playing this as Orzhov colors. Like, I see more of like the 2 mana the council the spirit one. What's the one? Ghost one?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with, I think that like the strategy of Regna and Krav, at least the way that he built it, is like you said, it's the aristocrat, the classic aristocrat Orzhov strategy. And I think there are just like, I don't know whether it's just more popular, more powerful commanders out there for that strategy that people don't ever even look twice at Regna Krav. Plus, you could also just play them in the 99. So
I can definitely see that. But its main way of like finishing out games is to just create large amounts of tokens, and sustain through all of the early game threats. If he gets low enough, he usually has a really good way of gaining life back through Krav's ability. And then he also has finishers such as Aetherflux Reservoir, which we've become very accustomed to seeing in that deck when it has that kind of draw power that Krav provides when sacking tokens, and then also through death triggers like Blood Artist and Cruel Celebrant and things like that. But yeah, that's the way he kind of fights through with that deck. So it is an interesting deck. Aristocrats is a theme that's been around for ever, basically in Magic history, and then he just kind of amps that up with both partner commanders, which I think is really cool.
But it is very, very slow.
Yeah,
it is slow. Very slow. It is a very like draw the game out and grind you to dust.
Yeah, it is. It is very much so the way that it is intended to be played. It is, and the player that's going to be playing it is, like we said, really, he's played it a lot. He does that very well. He's very good at kind of grinding through the game and playing slower and thinking through all of his turns. But talk about sacrificing and aristocrats, and what do we have next? We have Jordan's Vivictus Asmati the Dire deck. So
yep. Another one of my Elder Dragon decks. I did make 4 of the 5 Elder Dragons with Brandon here taking the 5th. But yeah, Vivictus Asmati the Dire. This is a Jund sacrifice deck, very heavy on the Jund sacrifice theme. It actually has a secret commander. It's one of my secret commander decks, that Korvold Faker's King, who's a really, really powerful commander. But I decided to go with Vivictus Asmati just because it's a little more flavorful and fun. It's really powerful itself. But yeah, it uses a lot of not only like sacrifice payoffs, I would say. Cards like Mayhem Devil. Yeah, I can't think of everything.
Your Jund sacrifice style standard right now of
right
one standard. So yeah, the Vivictus deck that we played with, that I've played against, at least through seeing it, plays with a lot of like ways of disrupting your opponent while also getting value. So it's never like against you. You play a lot of like haste threats, so you're not really affecting your own board, but you're disrupting what your opponents are trying to do. And the fact that he can target basically anything on the board is really powerful. And I think I also really like Vivictus as a flavor commander rather than Korvold. I know Korvold is very powerful in its own right, just like Kresh would be in Prosh would be in Jund colors, but I like Vivictus's style ability. I don't remember if you play any you play some, but I don't know how much you play of the top of your deck manipulation.
I actually don't play that much, honestly. I actually recently, within the last month or so, have changed the deck up quite a bit. They're kind of powered up for this event. So I have the deck list pulled up here, and it's there's not a lot of top of the deck manipulation anymore. It's strictly like just getting value from sacrificing creatures rather than abusing Vivictus Asmati's effect. So you're playing, like you said, I'm playing a lot of haste enablers to let Vivictus go off right away, but I'm also playing just a lot of value creatures that make a lot of tokens, a lot of creatures that have big time ETB abilities, like big time creatures that can come in off the top. This deck also doesn't play any non-land permanents, so it's all permanents. The entire 99 is permanent, so the ability will always connect 100% of the time, which is nice. But yeah, it's a lot about just like big time value creatures with ETB or die triggers. But yeah, I unfortunately I can't realistically just playing 20 something EDH decks afford a bunch of Sensei divining tops or whatever. So I try to keep the power down just a tiny bit, because it is. I mean, other than that, it still does some really powerful stuff.
Yeah, just like good value while disruption. That's something that's always good in Commander. Just drawing or flipping over better cards for trading in a Goblin token or a Soldier token or a Goat token, like we can do with like Wolf Strider and Standard, and turning that into maybe like an Eternal Witness or anything in like black or red that gets that ETB trigger. So Jund is definitely the colors to be in when you're doing ETBs with just like value, not drawing, but like getting value. And then next we have value of Sidisi Brood Tyrant, which is an accelerated graveyard deck that I will be piloting. Just to go off a little bit on it, It plays a lot of the zombie themed and anthem effects. I tried to make it more zombie themed while also playing like a mulch style, which is filling my graveyard as fast as possible in many different instances, because Sidisi doesn't care if you mill over one creature or three. It will always just produce one zombie. So I do have a lot of spells in there that are based on like land return, which is like World Shaper and Splendid Reclamation, but also playing like flashback cards like Dread Return and things to get back out of my graveyard, and just like cards like Dead Bridge Chant to get that value out of my graveyard with that zombie theme, and just try to produce tokens into big creatures like Craterhoof and finish off the game. So that's the kind of style. And then I also have Lab Maniac if I need be, if I ever mill myself out. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping that maybe it would, because especially with cards such as like Altar of Dementia and Hermit Druid, you can
it's Sidisi, like the way you built it is turbo mulch, turbo mill, whatever you want to say, mill yourself, and then you use all the value from the graveyard. So it relies quite a bit on the graveyard, but the way that you've particularly built it with a lot of different, like you said, you have like a small zombie tribal synergy in there, as well as like
Undead War Chief and Lord Accursed.
And I know you have like other cards in there that you can like hard cast or whatever. That it's just not like all in on the graveyard, because there's a lot of graveyard decks, so we have a lot of graveyard hate. So it's got to be able to kind of pivot on an axis and be able to fight around graveyard hate.
Yeah, which is what, like you said, like our group has become very aware of the graveyard shenanigans that some decks are capable of, and trying to prevent that is a big part of what we've learned over like probably the past year, I'll say, about our play styles through EDH. But yeah, that's going to be one that I am looking forward to playing. That's one of my better ones.
All right, and next we have Rich playing his Rick Smithies, the Slumbering Isle. This is a Simic-colored Sea Monsters deck. I guess you call it like kind of a Sea Monster tribal, pseudo-tribal deck. It's just looking to do what Simic does, and Simic has done for the last, I mean, if you've played Standard over the last couple of years, you know all about this. It's just drawing a lot of cards, ramping a lot, and playing a lot of big, stupid creatures, and that's pretty much all it does. It does have a couple of like, infinite combos in there, like the infinite mana with the Rick Smithies or whatever. But other than that, it's just a lot of just Leviathans and Krakens and bouncing all of your opponent's things over and over again and swinging in for like 28 damage a turn.
Yeah, just like having the Leviathans and Island Walk has been something that we've witnessed through that. We have the style where, like you said, we have a sub package in that deck with sea monsters, and there are cards that care about that, definitely, with bouncing creatures back to owner's hands with except for the actual monsters that he plays in there. So it always usually works out for him with like the bouncing. He also, the few times he's played it, it's shown me that he at least knows like what the deck is trying to do, that if I were to pick it up, I wouldn't know some of the interactions, like how Erythmathes can remain a land and you can not keep the counter, like you can not remove the counters each time you play a spell. So I thought that was a little unique when he did that. And it's not something that you would just pick up and play. And it's definitely got some intricate lines that you got to take with that deck. It's not the easiest to play, I'll say. But then, the other graveyard.
It's still a blue-green stompy deck, but yeah.
Blue-green rampant drop.
It's not
Commander.
the dumbest deck in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Next deck in the group here
is going to be our other graveyard-themed deck, like mainly graveyard-themed deck, is going to be Feldon of the Third Path, which is a mono-red commander. It heavily relies on graveyard and reanimation. Pseudo, I'll say. It's not quite reanimation, but he creates token copies of the creatures in his graveyard.
He's essentially doing the same thing. Like he has to target a creature in the graveyard, so he wants to just dump a bunch of big stupid creatures in his graveyard.
Yeah, there are a lot of looting effects, a lot of
rummage effects.
That's what I was going to look for. A lot of those effects where he discards and gets the value off of that. Gamble is a huge one that's good for that deck. And then it's very important because it doesn't remove the creature from the graveyard.
So he can keep doing it. It's
yeah,
repeatable.
he can keep doing it. And if he has an untap effect or some way to get Feldon untap, he can create 2 of them. Big dumb Eldrazi, he has big dumb artifact creatures.
He's the deck is just trying to abuse Feldon as much as possible. So yeah, like you said, using rummage and looting effects to fill his graveyard, and then maybe find a way to untap Feldon and just keep abusing his effect and interacting with the board with his creatures in the graveyard. Creatures like a meteor golem or something, so he can destroy things. But yeah,
definitely out of the top 8, probably the most reliant on the commander, I'll say. The actual general.
This is a deck that definitely, like you said, it's definitely heavily reliant on the commander, and that's something that I personally try to shy away from when I build my decks. If you see, well, as we're going through the deck list here, and the type of decks that I personally am piloting and bringing to the table is a lot like every other deck I have, but I try to build them like as good decks, not too reliant on the commander, and sometimes that bites me in the ass because like then I skimp out on the ceiling of the deck, like the ceiling, the power level, like we said about like an Omnath or something. Like I lose some of that by building my decks this way, but it gives me a little bit more, I guess, like flexibility.
Yeah. All right. So down to Group B, you can go through those.
And we'll try to pick up the pace here. We'll just kind of go through a basic idea of what the archetype is rather than kind of explaining the entire game plan.
Just we'll also have that in the videos themselves, the actual gameplays. Like
and we'll post every deck list so you kind of get an idea.
Those will be included with it.
All right, Group B, I'm going to be piloting probably my favorite deck. It's just so me. Okay, so my deck in Group B is going to be Anafenza the Foremost. This is Abzan, Hate Bears. I'm just trying to slow the game down as much as possible and punish every player with a bunch of Hate Bears and grind them all out and win through combat.
Yeah. Brago, King Eternal, is the popular Azorius commander. I built this a little bit different than some people that I've seen. Built it like Jordan's Nicol Bolas deck. It's just Super Friends, Oath of Teferi, all that stuff, Deep Glow Skate, trying to win through ultimate Planeswalkers and through getting Brago through to blink Planeswalkers to get double activations per turn. So it's usually like get a value card or plus it, and then plus it to get its loyalty up, so that on the next 3 turns of my opponents that they don't have the ability to just like kill it, and I can keep doing it over and over again and resetting loyalty. So that's kind of what I go through with Brago.
Yeah, and the thing about Brago too, I just want to touch on real quick. It's your a type of typical control deck in EDH. You don't really see it often, but it's the type of deck that kind of snowballs out of control. And because you've played it for so long, we kind of understand what the deck is. And if it's just left unchecked, like even if you're not doing anything, it can just snowball out of control really, really quickly. And Brago doesn't take any mana to activate its ability. Planeswalkers don't take any mana to activate their abilities. So like he can like activate a bunch of Planeswalkers and cast a bunch of spells all in the same turn.
Yeah, and it has a lot of mana rocks, so you can blink those as well.
Yeah, right.
So, like,
and the mana rocks you can get double mana out of.
So that's the main way of doing that. And then I also play like a lot of board wipes, a lot of Ghostly Prison propaganda style effects to secure those. So all right. And then
next deck is Teshar Ancestors Apostle. This one will be piloted by Rich. This is mono white. This is, I mean, if you watch Commander Quarters, you'll probably know about this deck. This is an all-in kind of combo deck. Trying to use artifacts. I call it the Krark's Clan Ironwood combo deck. It's essentially the same deck. If you ever watched it or played it in Modern, it's essentially the same style of deck. You're just trying to like loop a bunch of artifacts and chain them all together and go through your entire library until you hit the infinite mana combo, and then get like something like what is it? The one that mills.
Altar of Dementia.
Yeah, you can get an Altar of Dimension and just mill all your opponents out over and over again.
Yeah, through. There's a reason that KCI is banned in Modern, but I mean, in mono white, it's a little bit more understandable. But
just know that there's probably like quite a few people out there, because I know like our group is a little more on the competitive side. That's why we like doing these sports like things. That's why we're running the World Cup like a sports like event. Is we're a little more competitive than a lot of people that play this format. Maybe a lot of the people that are going to watch, but So it's definitely an all-in combo deck. Maybe you won't enjoy it, but it is mono white, so it is at a disadvantage inherently.
Yeah. So that's just like I guess the balance of the mono white versus the all-in combo.
Yeah.
I would feel like he could have value. Like there are probably some value plays in it. I haven't played against it enough to know about like what the value plays might be, but I know Teshar. I know that what it's capable of.
Yeah, well, yeah, the value plays are just like drawing a crap ton of cards to get to your combo. Like that's
Thank you for keeping it a little PG there. So next we have our other monocolor deck, which is going to be Titania, Protector of Argoth, piloted by James. This deck is kind of a big green creatures deck, but at the same time, it's very land heavy. It has the land effects such as Azusa and Crucible Worlds and Sylvan Safekeeper to try to keep creatures in check. The Strip Mine package, it has that. A lot of the reserve list lands are in here. He did spend a lot of money on those kind of cards, not to like necessarily up the power level, but just to give it that like different feel for the deck. And those type of lands where you sacrifice 2 lands to gain 4 mana, colorless or whatever it is
like Scorch Ruins.
Yeah, is something that's only on the reserve list. So it definitely just adds more value to his deck. And it looks
that's something that like people, there's a big misconception that like if you spend a lot of money, your deck is going to be just like more powerful, which is not true. And I'm sure we're going to do a podcast episode on that. I'd like to anyways, and how I think personally that mana bases are kind of one of the most overrated. Not overrated, but like the most expensive, overly priced parts of playing the format because and I'll just say this real quick and we can move on. But like Rich, he plays on essentially a budget, but he plays decks that play essentially all basics. It's like 85% of his mana base are basic lands.
Or the tap lands.
Or the tap lands, yeah. And he wins a very fair amount of games, and he's playing with a very budget mana base. So lands are kind of overpriced in my opinion, and like you said, just because some of them on the reserve list, that's why their price is so high, or because they're used in other competitive formats. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, you'll notice that our mana bases, for the 3 of us at least, maybe me and Jordan more dominantly, are the typical modern style mana bases with fetches,
shocks. Yeah.
We even do have some original dual lands in there. We have those featured in some of our decks, but
you do.
Well, I forgot that you don't. Yeah, that's right. I do. So
yeah, I don't.
I thought you.
That's fine though.
Yeah, I thought you.
It's not that. It's honestly not that big of a deal. Like
like he was just saying, it's not fantastic. Like if I don't have the battle bond lands, and it essentially does the same thing in a 4-player commander game. I don't care if I have a Bountiful Promenade or a Savannah. I think that's another combination that they have, but like it's not that much different. I know it's one's like fetchable with the Windswept Heath or whatever, but aside from that, I mean,
all right. We're getting a little carried away here. We're passionate about this subject here about mana bases.
Yep. All right. So anyway, finishing off Titania, finishing through locks, whether it be the Strip Mine combo with Crucible,
or Glacial Chasm, and
Glacial Chasm and Hall of Gemstones to make
Constant Mists. Yeah, it's actually like a mono green control deck. Like it's a land control. It also has a lot of fog effects that are reviable. Like
I think it's like the opposite of Omnath. Like lands can be gassed in that deck.
Yeah,
and creatures are like spells can also be really beneficial to its game plan too.
It does finish you off though, like a traditional green deck would though. It just stomps you out. Like Titania makes a bunch of tokens, you create a hoof and stomp everyone out.
Yep. Omnath, you just sack the token, you just sack the lands and get tokens like that.
Yep. All right. So the next deck is my Narset Enlightened Master, and I'm sure a lot of people are groaning right now because everybody hates Narset. But I actually put a very, very, very unique twist on this deck. It is actually a token deck. It's like a Jeskai control token deck. I'm not playing any extra turn spells in it like you typically see in an Narset deck. So it's using a lot of enchantments, stacks effects, enchantments that make tokens, such as Metallurgic Summonings or Shark Typhoon. I love that card, by the way. And also some creatures that make tokens off of Spell Slinging. So it's like kind of a Spell Slinger deck too. So you got your Kaikar Wind's Fury in there, Monastery Mentor, Young Pyromancer, and also Arcana Sun's Grace is a new addition to the deck because there's so many enchantments that I'm playing. So it's kind of like a well-rounded token control deck. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and Swarm Intelligence in opposition are two huge enchantments that we play in there. So not one of my favorites to play against. All right, next is my Atarka World Render deck. Now, this is my Dragon Tribal deck. This is my Gruul Dragon Tribal. When I first got into Magic, I always thought Atarka, the Dragon Lord from the series, the Dragons of Tarkir, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dragons of Tarkir. And I always thought that was such a cool card. So I always wanted to make Dragon Tribal. I think dragons are one of the best, well, one of my favorite tribes in MTG. So just your stereotypical trying to cheap out, trying to ramp out big dragons to finish the game. Atarka gives them all double strikes, so it's huge combat swings, huge commander damage swings, trying to end the game through commander damage, through just damage itself, through combat. So that's haste enabling the good green.
I think this deck in particular, I mean, this was a really, really good deck when we first started playing Commander a couple years ago. And I think it's suffered kind of the most out of almost any of our decks over the years of like us learning the format a little better and how to play the format a little better. I think it's
definitely slower because it has a higher CMC base.
Yeah, but even like because like it used to win so much through like commander damage, and like we just didn't know how to interact. We had terrible threat assessment, and then we would just die out of nowhere.
Like I said, it's slower, so it's usually to the point where by the time I'm casting Atarka, people are doing way more stuff than I am. And
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like it's kind of fallen behind. It's become like almost obsolete.
Which is probably why it's a lower ended Gruul commander that not many people play. I just love the dragon style theme, and I know there are other commanders for that, but Atarka World Render was the one I chose, so that's what I went with.
All right. Next deck in Group B is going to be Yarok the Desecrated. This is typical Yarok ETB abusing deck.
Saffron Olive deck.
What's that?
Saffron Olive deck. It's
Panamanicon, Yarok, like just very straightforward, but gives you so much value through all the little ETB type effects. It's also got, I think, 1 or 2 infinite combo lines with Ghostly Flicker and
Peregrine Drake and Archaeomancer.
Peregrine Drake. That's the other one that I was thinking. Yeah, Archaeomancer. Yeah. So it's a very straightforward deck. It's just focused on abusing enter the battlefield type effects,
which is very good. Agent of Treachery is also a very big card that deck likes to run through trying to get ETB triggers. All right, and then finally, Risk the Redeemed, which is going to be piloted by James, is his Elf Tribal deck. We have seen so many iterations of his elf tribes. He has gone from Reshmi, the one from Kaladesh, I believe it is, or Aether Revolt. It's Kaladesh.
I think so.
And then it went to Edric, and now it is at Risk. So
I don't think Edric was Elf Tribal though. I think Edric was just a straight up Edric deck.
No, that was after. So he went from Edric. He went from Reshmi.
No, I remember. Okay, I remember. And then it was the one like small period of time he went to who was it, Selvala?
Yeah, he might have gone
parlay one.
Yeah,
the one where you just like he thought that was like the most cool fun thing in the world.
It was green white.
It sucked.
So then he went to green white, and he made the Elf Tribal. I mean,
Elf Ball is just old school. Typical. I mean, like this is like the quintessential Magic tribe deck. This is probably the best, most powerfully supported tribe in the history of the entire game. So it's just Outball Tribal, and it does really powerful things with mana and mana sinks.
Yeah, like Azuri. But
like Azuri or Crater Hoof or
yeah,
whatever make up.
all of them. All right.
Yeah.
So that is going to be our Group B, and we're going to start next with our Group C, which
Okay,
is,
Group C. Yes. Group C. This one's a fun one. A
Yeah.
lot of tribal decks in this one. This one's gonna be a fun one. So number one is my baby, Gishath Sun's Avatar. This is the first ever commander deck that I built. I did get precons. We got precons initially, but this is the first deck that I ever built. This was right after Ixalan came out, right about the time that Rivals of Ixalan was coming out.
Mm-hmm. When it was
I built this deck. So this is just straight up dinosaur tribal, big stompy Timmy style dinosaur tribal. Just trying to win through big stupid creatures attacking over and over and over again.
You'll notice
is really powerful though. Like that's like having haste is like one of the best things they could have done.
It does have really good words on it. But you'll notice through a lot of our game styles, and I notice this a lot with Gishath, is we'll get to the point where we'll have a threat assessment of someone else, and Jordan will ask to attack with Gishath to another player to try to like even out the playing field, and it'll overturn enough to make him the new threat or to just close out the game entirely with like Sun's Avatar. So it's definitely like one of those roulette style decks that like it can flip on a.
Be damned if you do, be damned if you don't.
Yeah,
you like the shaft go off to try and save the game.
Yeah, I'll take like a 7 damage hit as long as you can like deal with whatever he's doing over there. But sometimes then it like, oh my gosh, what did I opened up Pandora's box, and now it's at a new point. But I think he's fan favorite commander, but I think he's like kind of underplayed, honestly, and like. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot. I think it goes with what happens the next set with Zacama and how powerful Zacama is. So
and it's also, I guess, kind of what I was touching on earlier is that they're probably, if you're playing like a Stompy deck, there's 100 better Stompy decks than
because
but like
dinosaurs
is really good.
Dinosaurs are a new tribe in MTG, basically, essentially, but. Next up, we're going to have the other Ixalan tribe, which was my first commander deck, or EDH deck. We have Kumena, Tyrant of Arazka. This started out as the
Tashana.
The Tashana voice deck with just like a lot of merfolk trying to just power out as many creatures as you can. And when they came out with Kumena in Rivals, they made it more so with like tapping and untapping and getting all those effects, which Simic does really, really well. And it's just basically through value and trying to untap your own creatures through things such as Seedborn Muse and effects such as that. And they have their own
Intruder Alarm.
Yeah, Intruder Alarm. Yeah, and they have their own tribal card to untap
Mirror Commerce.
Yeah, so it kind of comes out with the untap theme and the tap theme to try to just pump up your team. Classic merfolk, just cool fish people that I really enjoy playing.
All right, so the next deck on the list is another Rich combo deck, which is why if you see our logo, Rich is the sugar skull with tattoos all over it, and one of them says combo on it. He loves his combo decks. So this is Gave or Gave, however you all want to pronounce it. I pronounce it Gave, Guru of Spores. And no, it is not Sapling Tribal like I was hoping it'd be. It is all in on the Abzan Sack combo, Revel Arc, Karma Guide combos with death triggers. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. Every time I play against it, like it's the same thing. It just combos.
Yeah, I think he started out as like like Sapling Tribal. I remember playing it back when he first got it, and it had
but I don't think you actually like knew what the deck.
No, absolutely not. No, so I'm saying he did have a lot of Sapling cards, and then I think he switched it, and it went to combo cards, and now he like changed the certain combo cards into a different set of combos, and now is like trying to like mask himself to be something and like say that he's not something, but he really is. And
this is
I don't have persist combos anymore, but I do have an infinite kill combo, like drain combo.
Yeah, so this is one of my lesser favorites personally out of the group, just because like it feels
consistent.
Yeah, it's too consistent on a combo. I mean, we'll see in the long run, but like it just feels like, and it just combo kills out of nowhere. So it just feels like very CEDH, like it's a budget CEDH deck, but
Yeah,
you know,
and,
that's what
and
it
the
is.
thing
We'll
with
see.
like Teshar and combo decks like that, they're reliant on the commander, and we have seen through. I mean, Gave does accelerate combos or facilitate combos, but there are many combos in Abzan colors that he plays that
Right, that's what I mean. It's like you
Gave
get
at
two
all.
other colors, two other really powerful colors, black and green, and
Yeah.
in combos. So
Yeah. All right, and then number 4 is Urza Lord High Artificer, which is James's mono blue artifact style deck. It's exactly what you would perceive it to be. It is very heavy on trying to just tap the artifacts for mana, spin the wheel a whole bunch, get out cards that benefit you or can be political tools such as Howling Mine.
it's a prison deck. Let's call it what it is. It's mono blue prison.
It's
not
to the point where it gets like it. If it gets too out of control, it's mono blue prison because there's Winter Orb, there's Static Orb, there's all those effects that definitely can lock opponents out of the game. But yeah, it's just a lot of value artifacts, just like you would expect. There's not much uniqueness going on there. It's a very powerful deck. It's not something that like I'm going to criticize and sit here and say he has no imagination. It's just what you would expect from an Urza deck.
Yeah, I mean he's playing a small Thopter theme, I guess. He's like tokens or whatever. But like at its heart, it's mono blue prison. It's Urza. He is like kind of like how I'm doing with Nice Side. He did take like Urza's super powerful with like extra turn spells, and he hasn't done that yet, but like it's still playing, like you said, Winter Orb, Static Orb. It's like looking to abuse Urza and its tap ability to kind of lock people
combo on there.
Oh yeah, he's got the Scepter combo.
Yeah, the Scepter combo in there. All right, but yeah, that's Urza.
All right, and so the next deck, I've got to find my place here. Oh yeah,
yours.
Yeah, I love this deck so much. This is probably, I would say, my favorite tribe in the game. Zombies, Grim Corpse Born, Blue Black Zombie Tribal. Ever since we started playing Magic, we started playing in like Eldritch Moon. Right when Eldritch Moon, right after it came out, but Blue Black Zombies was the thing, and I was like, I'm in it. We're playing standard. I'm playing this deck. It looks sweet. So I've just carried that over to EDH, and I'm playing Grim because he is a combo piece in the command zone, which is really important. And this deck is just really heavy on zombie tribal anthem effects. There's tons and tons and tons of anthem effects, but there's also the main win condition, which is actually more, I guess, more powerful in a 4-player game, is not through combat, but through life drain. So there's a lot of life drain. There's a lot of life drain. Infinite combos with the infamous Rooftop Storm. If anybody's played against zombies, I'm sure you've seen Rooftop Storm. It's just facilitates a lot of combos. Even if they're not infinite, it just facilitates a lot of things, especially with Gravecrawler. It's just a really, really fun deck. It's a really fun deck.
Yep. And then we have my, as Mutsta calls him, the Duke of Dumpsters, Duretti, Scrap Savant. We have the mono red artifact reanimation deck. It's a big, dumb. I'm just going to be really short and precise with this. This is big, dumb artifacts that get reanimated. Try to ultimate Duretti, try to lock people out with Mindslaver, but also try to cast.
There it is.
Yeah, well,
you're just going to avoid that point. I'm like, do not try to make it out to be like
I win with it are
playing some artifacts. It's Mindslaver combo.
Mindslaver and trying to take everybody's turn and to win through that. But I do have a lot of like big Eldrazi creatures, planeswalkers, just things like that, all as dust, and trying to just ultimate Duretti, I think, as fast as possible, or to make sure that it survives. But yeah, that's the big way that Duretti wins, is Mindslaver.
It's quite a good way to win. There's a lot of ways to recur it, so it's very hard to stop. All right, so the next deck we have is relatively new deck to the group, Jorian Ruin Diver. This is a Izzet Spellslinger deck that's looking to draw a lot of cards.
Cantrips.
And cantripping over and over and over again. Looking to use effects that abuse cantrips, like abuse drawing the second card every turn, or cards that abuse spell slinging, cards like Gutter Snipe, So it's almost like a tempo control deck. You're not really doing so much aggressive attacking, but you're using your spells to draw and like trigger abilities that burn your opponent out and then hold up counter magic so that you can't die.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a very sneaky deck because it doesn't look like it on like face value. It doesn't look like it's doing much because it's just like cycling through the deck. But he's getting like some value, and he's drawing extra cards or he's playing extra spells, and eventually he gets to a point where he has counter spells in hand, and he can eventually win with combo like. Not infinite combos, but like just like having gutter snipe out, like you said, or the other,
it's a very like slow burn. Like you're just taking like everybody takes 2. Okay, then I play this. Everybody takes 2. Everybody takes 2, and then before you know it, you're like, okay, I've got 15 life left.
Yeah, but even so, that can also be like a game ender because at the point by he's doing that when he's at like turn 9, 10, 11, and we've been bashing each other in the face because Jorian's sitting over there just cycling through cards, and we're trying to stop other people from winning. He just plays that one card to deal damage, and then it's just cantrip, thought scour, opt. Just playing
that's a like that twice. You hit it like exactly like that's why the deck is so sneaky because it's not like really threatening when you look at it, like, okay, gutter snipe is doing 2 damage to me. I'm not gonna like send my removal that way. I'm not gonna send my big stompy creatures his way because he's not really like, I don't feel that threatened when I'm like looking at it at face value. It's about the long term. It's about like the long game, the marathon.
Yeah.
It's a marathon deck. It's a marathon tempo deck, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then finally for Group C, we have Yawgmoth Thran Physician, which is another part of James's Urza Saga theme decks, which is which was a nice addition through Modern Horizons, getting those two to finish out.
Definitely really cool for
the color wheel for him. So this deck is about proliferate, and it is about sacking your own creatures and proliferating. And while he doesn't proliferate often with the deck, I think he made it with that idea in mind with the Planeswalker theme. He has a sub Planeswalker theme. He has counters galore in that deck. But it is a lot of value through aristocrats sacking mono black.
Yeah, it's mono black. I would call it mono black control. It's definitely like Titania, but like in black. So you've got a lot of what black does well, but in the same style as Titania. Like Titania is green, so they got a lot of land and like tokens and stompy creatures. Black has a lot of like kill and like in grinding you out and drawing cards. And
the fact that it draws cards is definitely what keeps the engine going through the long game, and just trying to keep cycling through creatures and sending them back at your opponents. But
oh look, it's another prison deck, mono black prison. We'll call it that. We got mono green prison, mono blue prison,
and
mono
the funny thing
prison.
is, the last thing we talked about before we got on was the last time we hung out with them and played games was that we kind of realized that Jordan was always notoriously known as our stacks player, and I'm sure he would love to have that title, but I mean, we kind of changed that quota over to James because he likes to play that prison style. He likes to play the slow grindy games, and boy,
I like to grind games out, but I'm like, if you want like kind of a comparison to what I like, is I like, if you think of modern, like a Jund or Abzan or green black rock deck, like I like very like kind of mid-rangey decks, and he's like on the far end of the spectrum, and like he wants to shut the game down and play like everybody plays 1 land per turn, everybody casts 1 spell per turn.
It's it gets to a game state where it drags, but
sluggish.
It does what he wants it to do, and that's how he plays Magic. So it's at that point. And then finally, Group D.
Yeah, this is the final group. All right, the first deck. I know I said Gishath was my baby, but I think this deck, while it's not my favorite deck in the world, I think Anafensa takes the title for my favorite deck to play. I think this deck is the one that I work the hardest on.
I think its uniqueness also like adds some of that to like how much you enjoy playing it.
Yeah,
because this deck is a little bit different than what you would normally see from this commander.
So this is Atraxa Praetor's Voice, and this is actually the first commander I ever got. We got C16 right when it came out, and I just love the card. I love the art. I love the lore behind the card. And I've tried to make this deck work so bad because it was such a powerful card, and this has been through Atraxa has been through like 100 different iterations, and I finally settled on Infect, which is kind of a flavor win, anyways. And when you think of Infect decks, especially in a 4-player commander game, I mean, this is not 1v1, so in fact, you kind of really have to change your mindset on this deck and how you build it, because when I originally built the Infect Atraxa deck, it was like your typical modern or legacy Infect deck, where it was just a bunch of dorky Infect creatures, a bunch of pump spells. Everything was very mana cheap, and you were just trying to kill your opponents with poison as quickly as possible. But I learned very, very quickly that that is just not feasible in a 4-player game in the long run. So what I had to do is, this is actually a Sultai proliferate control deck that uses poison as its win condition. So you're like trying to slow the game down with attrition, incremental value, stick something like an Ichor Rats to poison all your opponents at once, or gets like some kind of evasive threat to poison your opponents, and then just proliferate and proliferate and proliferate.
Through like Flux Channeler and
like Flux Channeler, Evolution Sage, Contagion Engine, Contagion Class, lots of different proliferators. And this also not only poison that I proliferate, I also have like charge counters and things of that nature to proliferate. So I kind of get dual use or triple use out of the Atraxa proliferate. So it's mainly a Sultai control deck, splashing a little bit of white at its core, but it uses Infect as its main win condition, which I think is just a big flavor win for the deck, and why I think it's so cool.
Yeah, to the point when you change that deck from like mainly the pump spells and everything, I think what had happened was when we played against it and you got that first or second Infect counter, and you like started to see that you could die in one swing from an Infect creature, it was a lot of poor threat assessment, because it's about survival at that point. And if someone else is doing something, but I have 2 Infect counters and I know I can die to you in one swing, I may focus my resources on you rather than the enemy at hand, which may be someone else that's doing whatever. But so the control theme, the Sultai theme that you have provided in that deck, I think is really cool to add to like the slower Infect, but knowing that you can die through Infect and proliferating, and it's definitely one of the cool ways to do it. And then next, I have my newest addition to our bundle, which is going to be Chainer Dementia Master. This is a very big mono black, trying to get a lot of mana into reanimation and to get big black creatures back from the graveyard, such as Shieldred, Massacre Worm, Massacre Girl, just to get like value out of those creatures. Runescarred Demon, just a lot of those big ones to get back, and then to win through just combat. Not many other ways that we go about that, but yeah, just mono black reanimation, what you would expect from Chainer.
It's a cool deck, definitely cool deck. I like reanimator strategies a lot. All right, next up on the list, we have Rich playing Maelstrom Wanderer. Again, this is kind of like Omnath. This is just a commander that's been around for a really, really long time, and people know what it does. It's a big, hasty cascade commander. That's why it's just big spells to cascade into. You just ramp, play Maelstrom Wanderer over and over and over and over again, and get like massive value off of these big, stupid spells that you cascade into. So, yeah, it wins just like Omnath. It's really, really similar to Omnath, except it gets to play blue. So you're just basically winning through either stomping your opponent out with big, massive, ridiculous, like
haste creatures, but also it has access to blue, so it provides things such as like Diluvian Primordial and cards like that come out. Prime Speakers on a
it has a little more, I would say, resiliency than the Omnath deck, just because you have all the blue draw in it. Like you said, Diluvian Primordial, or what's that enchantment that Mind's Dilation? Prime Speaker Zagana. Like you got a lot of different draw things in there to help refuel and or further fuel the fire.
And then we're going into the next one, which is Feather the Redeemed. So the other Redeemed set from James. This is the Boros Angel deck. the heroic mechanic from
Yeah, it's a
Theros,
Boros heroic.
Yeah, it's just a lot of playing a lot of cantrips that target feather or target your creatures that then or protection spells that you get back to your hand and try to win through pump spells through feather, because you can target feather with pump spells and then get them back and try to like kill your opponent through that and just try to grind the game out that way. And it's a lot of each turn before end step, play card, draw a card, expedite, haste, whatever.
Very
rage.
What's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of steps involved in it.
It's just like intricate, just like very like, but like I don't know.
Tedious. I would say tedious. Like there's a lot of tedious little like things that you have to do. You have to remember to play cards at every single person's end of main phase 2. Yeah. And then draw a card, do something else, get your cards back, pass priority. So it's a very tedious deck. It's just feather heroic. Nothing really special about the deck. If you know about feather, you know what it's trying to do. So yeah, that's that. And so the bottom half here, Group D, the final group of decks, we have my deck is that I'm going to be piloting here, Temmet, Vizier of Noctamon. This is just a cool, like I've always liked Temmet. I like the Amonkhet theme. This is Azorius tokens, but it's not like your typical token deck where you're just trying to go wide. This one, you're trying to go tall, abuse equipment, abuse combat damage type effects. We're talking about like Curious Obsession, Coastal Piracy.
Yeah, unblockable.
You're going to abuse attacking opponents and trying to draw cards through that way. And there's just a lot of good tokens you can make really big and unblockable and try to win the game that way.
Yeah. Definitely a unique deck. I also really enjoy the Amonkhet lore and the theme through the ancient Egyptian style. That I thought they did a good job with that. Next is my Kozilek, the Great Distortion deck, which I started on Commander's Quarters and kind of upgraded it from there. I put in my Tron cards. I put in my big dumb Eldrazi cards. I always loved the Eldrazi theme in Shadows over Innistrad and regular Zendikar. So I made Kozilek, and its main thing is to try to dump your hand into ramping to try and cast Kozilek. It's like Maelstrom Wanderer, I should say.
So like Mana Rocks, you're saying?
Yeah,
like you ramp through Mana Rocks, your colorless Mana Rocks, you just dump a bunch of them out.
It's like Maelstrom Wanderer, though. You want to cast it a lot. You want to keep refilling your hand. You want to keep playing ramp spells, keep filling your hand, hold up counter spells for opponents' intricate pieces, and finish the game off with a big 12/12 menace creature. It's pretty straightforward. It has just a lot of the Mana Rocks that go overlooked because you have to play them because they're colorless, like the Urgolem's Eye and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think those are like, honestly, I think that's another thing we can talk about in the future. I think Commander Quarters has touched up on this quite a bit, if anybody's seen it, and that's just like, I think there are a lot of underplayed Mana Rocks. There are people playing Mana Rocks that they shouldn't be playing, that are kind of overplayed just because everyone else is playing them. Cards like, Commander Sphere or Darksteel Ingot that, mathematically don't give you the same kind of return that you should be looking for at that CMC level. Mm-hmm. But Urgolem's Eye, I think, is one of those ones that people just don't know about or don't ever play, and I think it's actually one of the better ones in colorless.
It's just like Hedron Archive, but just a little bit like you don't get the same effect with the draw too. But yeah, that's Kozilek.
All right, so the next deck is, we're getting to the end here, Skullbriar, the Walking Grave. This is Rich's Golgari Voltron deck. Skullbriar keeps counters wherever it moves, other than the hand or library. So if it goes to the graveyard, it goes to the command zone, if whatever, it'll keep all of the counters. So the idea here is to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it through its own ability or through other effects, and just keep pumping it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and kill people with commander damage.
Yeah. He with the introduction of Ikoria as well, they have those new counters like trample counters and yeah,
you're right. So I forgot about that.
Yeah, he uses some of those as well, like lifelink counters.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, those also stay on for those that are unaware for Skullbriar's actual ability. Those stay on as well. He does he does have a couple of alternate commanders in the deck. So if like Skullbriar becomes too much, he does have other Voltron commanders. But Skullbriar is definitely the workhorse of that deck for winning for him. And then finally, to round out our 32 decks, we have Niv Mizzet Parun, piloted by James, which is it Spellslinger. What happened was when he first originally built this deck, he had the Tandem Lookout and Curiosity combos where
Ophidian Eye.
Yeah, you deal damage, draw a card, deal damage, and you win through that way. Since he has taken him out, it's just a personal choice. He doesn't like winning that way. It's not the way that like we said, he enjoys methodically, slowly playing the game through.
Yeah, our play group is okay with infinite combos to an extent. I think that like the decks should have like maybe 1 or 2 infinite combos in the back door, just to kind of get out of really bad dire situations, or like prison locks you can get out of it. But we're not like at that CEDH level where like that's all the deck is focused on trying to win with. It's the easiest and the best and most consistent way to win in a 4-player game, but it's just like the least enjoyable for, I guess, us, but we still want them like available. But yeah, he's the type of player, like you said, he doesn't really care for that, so he took those things out.
Yeah, so it's just like mana rocks to color fix for Niv Mizzet's demanding
Turbo.
mana cost. Yeah, and then to just cycle through his draws, deal damage, try to clear the board as much as he can, keep Niv Mizzet alive through protection, through counter spells and whatever, and just have like the normal Spellslinger type creatures such as Electromancer Electrostatic Field, Young Pyromancer, and the other one, the Gutter Snipe. Said it earlier. Yeah, Gutter Snipe, and just deal damage that way. So Niv Mizzet Parun is definitely one of the stronger commanders that we have in the cup itself.
Yeah, because it just draws so many cards and does so much damage at instant speed too.
Yeah,
Mystic Remora on a body.
And it's not even just your own spells, which is crazy because of if you get paired against another like Spellslinger deck, it basically shuts that deck off because of how hard it can be, or how like taxing it can be on letting your opponent draw that much and deal the damage to your creatures or to face, even if you don't have creatures. So it's definitely a powerful commander.
For sure.
And speaking of powerful commanders, we're going to take the next couple minutes before we wrap up here to go over our thoughts on just kind of predictions of where we think the World Cup is going to lead to, what decks we think are really the ones we should be looking out for, the ones that may end up in that final game, that championship game, throughout all the groups. So we're going to go through each one of our groups, and we're going to go through one deck that we think stands out as probably the top deck as power level wise, or maybe that we think has the best chance of proceeding into the championship game. So through Group A, what I would say through probably my pick is Omnath. It's either Omnath or my Sliver Hivlord deck. Just one of the two of the most powerful decks that we have. Omnath is definitely, like we said, just a great value commander. No matter what you're drawing gas, big ramp, big damage, close out the game quick. But at the same time, like Sliver Hivlord is just really good value. So I'm thinking it's going to be probably one of those two. The other ones, I mean, I don't really see any other ones that like have the same kind of power level as those inconsistencies. Maybe Feldon, but like even then, Sidisi's pretty good.
If you're talking about like you gotta be able to win 5 or out of 5 games, you gotta have the most amount of wins. So I kind of agree. I think Omnath is just so fast. It's so powerful. Like, and then if he gets like a sack outlet or something, then
like interaction is really hard to come by with like dealing with
it's really, even if you're playing a super fast, like aggressive creature deck, it's still really hard to kill him really fast, because if he ramps and gets Omnath out and plays a land, he's got, 10
or just like
power.
plays or plays like a ramp spell like Migration Path or Explosive Vegetation when it's out.
He's got like 10, 15 power with the creatures in one play.
Yeah, it's insane. So yeah, definitely that. But like we've talked about Slivers being one of the best tribes for EDH in our play group and how consistent it is with just the tutor ability through the commander itself and then the ramp.
The one thing that holds it back, though, that I'd give the edge to Omnath is that it is a 5-color deck. So you're still, and Omnath is also your typical green ramp commander deck. So it's just more consistent on the low end. Like you're more consistently going to get good starts from Omnath. So I think that just gives it edge because I think it's a little more.
And with Sliver Hive Lord, I also was going to say, and how I mentioned with Omnath, interaction is a way to deal with Sliver Hive Lord. So if a deck does run a lot of interaction, such as Anafenza, or if you have a board wipe that happens and you have no way of really dealing with it, it does fall behind relatively fast. But if you can get like cards that make them have Shroud or Indestructible or whatever it is, it does snowball, like we've said. But yeah, definitely, probably Omnath is top deck in that Group A. So moving on to Group B.
Group B.
First initial reaction, if you had to pick one, because I'm going to try to pick one. I know I picked two last group, but I'm going to pick one. I'm going to try to just stick it to it and say
I love Anafenza so much, and I think the deck is so good, but it's probably, honestly, I think it's probably Narset out of all of them. I think Narset is really good.
Narset is just we've known it to be really consistent.
Although I think Titania is a dark horse because the deck is just like it's one of those decks, if you just let it sit and live for just a little too long, it's too late. Like you can't get out of it.
Yeah. To that, I just think the monocolored disadvantages show up in it. It has a very hard time dealing with certain things, pushing through spells, and also dying to flyers. It doesn't really have.
Oh, right. Yep. And Narset puts out quite a bit of flyers.
Yeah, it's just like with the sheer power level of Narset to get 4 free tokens off of a hexproof attacker is quite powerful in that group. And
the stacks effects too from the enchantments. Like, I think Narset is a powerful deck in the group.
Yeah, talking about it. All right, Group C. I think one stands out far and away more than any other one.
Yeah, dinosaurs. Just so good.
Keep propping up your own decks, but yeah.
No, I know. Like I think I'll let you go first, but
sheer power level commander, like just having it inside is definitely going to be Urza. I think this is like probably going to be the most competitive / fun to watch with Group C.
I don't know. I think Gave. I think the combo deck, just like you just personally playing against it, however many times, and just like it always looks like it does nothing, and then it just kills you. You're just dead. Everybody's just dead on the spot. Like
it definitely has that ability
on one turn, and he's just like, "Oh, I win."
I just think with us knowing that maybe it won't happen. I mean, it could always happen, but I think with Urza, just the way the commander is built and then having the way that he built it is just prison.
It's really powerful, but I think that like the thing that knocks it down a notch for me, that to me anyways makes Gave the clear winner of this group is that we understand the Urza deck. Like if he was just walking into a random pod, that might be true, but I like based on our history with playing against that deck, we kind of come to the point where we understand what that deck is, and we don't let him get to where he wants to be most of the time. He doesn't lose every game. He does win with it, but it's
just like I said, it may be like because of our threat assessment and like trying to just make sure the deck doesn't get too far, like have too much life before it starts to assemble some of the pieces. Like we mentioned the other ones too, like back to basics, like things of that nature that just like come out. And while that may be crippling for some decks, it may not be crippling for other decks. but yeah, especially with Richard's mana base, it doesn't really cripple him. But yeah, I just think Urza itself as a commander is just really good, and I can definitely see it coming out of there and not being surprised. And then finally for Group D, man, it's I'm not putting, maybe Sliver Hive Lord is but I'm not putting any of my decks as like really ones to come out of here. It's probably going to be
Feather. Say Feather with me. The deck is just like it's just a sneaky good deck. Like
I think it has a lot of issues in the early game, and like through interaction. If you can kill the Feather, man, it suffers.
It depends on like, I'm not saying that's inherently like, so the decks that Rich has picked, Maelstrom Wanderer, Omnath, etc. Those decks are really, really just hard to stop, like all the time. From the green light, he's going ramp spell, big creature. Feather is one of the so what I'm the point I'm trying to make here is that like we know what he's like, how powerful he is immediately from the start. Feather is kind of like you have to be wired to do what you said, to kill Feather immediately all the time. Like, so if you do that, if you kill Feather all the time immediately before he can hold any protection for it, or if two players target it and run him out of protection and it dies, then yeah, the deck doesn't really do a whole lot. But if he can just sit there and like I said about Jorian, and just kind of just like sit in the background, just like let us all kill each other, especially with something like Maelstrom Wanderer at the table, which we know we have to stop it or we're going to get steamrolled.
Yeah,
he can kind of sneak in game like that. That's the type of deck that like if he runs people out of resources, or people just naturally run out of resources throughout the course of the game, that he is like gonna almost become unstoppable. If he gets enough mana and enough like protection spells, it's gonna be like there's no hope.
Yeah, and
it becomes a 3-on-1. So, but it depends on the nature of the table. It depends on how the table is currently perceiving that particular game at that point in time.
Now, I did want to say Maelstrom Wanderer when we started, but like talking more and more about it and how you were bringing Feather up, I think it's just Niv Mizzet does what Feather does, but better. It has a very hard way of dealing with it. It's one big, powerful commander that can gain a lot of advantage, but it's uncounterable. I think blue and red is better than red and white, and just his big spells that he can cast, or his windfall abilities that can get insane values, that can just end games, is just, and it seems like it's built consistently because, like I said, he built it with the colored mana rocks to fix his mana. So it's like Niv Mizzet comes out relatively early for us in a starting game when we're all still ramping and things of that nature. And if we start to play cards that don't interact but like develop our board, and we can't deal with Niv Mizzet, it's by like if it lasts 2 to 3 turns, it becomes way too much card advantage. Now it does have the same issue as Feather, is if you can kill it, it doesn't do a lot, but I think it has more resilience than Feather, and it can be perceived maybe wrong if he's just drawing cards and not doing a lot with them. I mean, we'll find out.
If he's just drawing cards with like an electrostatic field, I'm not going to go after him. But like, and that could ultimately end terribly for me. But it's like if I see Niv Mizzet on the board and I see Feather on the board, I know who I'm going to try and kill.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I think,
although we don't have to worry about that ever happening, those two will never exist in the same game.
Yeah. So that's something we want to touch on too. We have it so none of our decks will play against each other in the round robin style, so we don't have to have someone else piloting our decks. We're gonna set it up that way. But I think the way we're evaluating decks is I'm basing it more on like what decks are inherently powerful, I should say, based on commander, and your decks are more of like what you expect to happen inside of the games themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. Yeah, just what we both know how we play in our play group style and what tends to happen. So, I mean, I can see, like, I understand everything you're saying. I'm just trying to talk from like the point of like sheer power level of commanders. And
Well, yeah, then I'd say like Maelstrom Wanderer and yeah, I like Urza, but I know how Gave is built. That's the problem. Is that like that deck is just
yeah. All right. Well, with that, that'll wrap up our first episode here for Tough Love.
Well, actually, hold on one second. We didn't give a clear winner. Like, who do you think is going to take this entire event? Who's your just idea? Just throw a name out there. What deck do you think is just going to take the cup this year, based on like the list?
100% honest. Omnath Locus of Rage is the one I am predicting to take the whole cup.
That's a good one. It really depends on how we treat Omnath in this event. Like, because we could.
But like I said, it's hard to treat it because of how explosive it is and how resilient it is, and it lives through interaction. The way he built it is just like big, powerful things like Warstorm Surge.
I'm gonna go with a dark horse. I'm gonna say Feather. I'm gonna say Feather is my pick. It is a dark horse pick, but it is my pick nonetheless. I think Feather is.
Don't let it win.
Be so sneaky and just win, because it always does. It always just sneaks out wins everywhere. All the time.
It does do that. So
that's it.
Yeah, with that, we're gonna end the podcast here. Thank you for tuning in, listening. We will be definitely providing more content with means as to recaps, just talking about how the World Cup is going, some of the things we've noticed, some of the things that we may want to change.
We're gonna like it's gonna be kind of like we're very much into sports. Me and my brother anyways. So and we know there's a lot of Magic players who like sports too. So we're gonna try to do this kind of like sports centery type, like where we're gonna do like you said, we're gonna do recaps of like the week, the entire round one, where every deck plays their first match. We're gonna video record every single match for round one anyways, and then for rounds 2 through 5 or games 2 through 5s for every single deck, we will kind of, I think the plan here is going to be record one game for each group. I
think that's a good idea.
Games 2 through 5, so we're not overloaded with all of this content, and that gives us a little bit of breathing room to do different things as well.
Like multiple games in one session rather than record every single game. But so that's definitely something you guys can look forward to, those watching, those listening. But with that, I would like to thank you all again for tuning in. I am your co-host, Brandon, and
don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes, Tough Customers Gaming.
Tough Customers Gaming on YouTube. Make sure you hit the bell to get notifications whenever we put a new video up, including all of our World Cup gameplay videos. So I'm sure a lot of you will be interested in seeing that. So we hope to get your views.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right.